Today, I'm joined by Cody Mallory, host of the Scoop on Hoops basketball podcast. Let's go balls deep.
I could bet all of the riches that I ever had.
Welcome to another episode of the Balls Deep Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Fantasy Basketball International. FBIbasketball.com is the website. You can find me on Twitter at AdamKing91. Today, as I said, joined by Cody Mallory. Cody, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me on.
That's all right. This is a little bit less of a fantasy focus on this one, much like my chat that I did with Lyle Swithenbank earlier. So you're actually the first person I'm talking to following the draft lottery, I think. So we actually, on all of my other shows, we've all been speculating where Victor will go. We now know where he's going to go. Well, we assume that we know where he's going to go.
The draft hasn't happened yet, man. There's still
it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened, but we're fairly confident of where he's going to go. And the NBA Finals are set now. This is again the first show I've done since that happened. The Miami Heat continue to defy the odds. So we will talk about you and your journey, I suppose. But just given it's very fresh in our minds, I suppose, what happened with the conference finals. You're obviously, anyone that knows who you are knows you're a Brooklyn fan, and by the image on the wall behind you and your shirt that you're wearing, that's pretty obvious. So obviously the Nets sort of didn't get to where you would like, but in terms of the Eastern Conference, what did you make of the conference finals?
Man, it was a crazy series, obviously. Back and forth. Looked like Boston quit after game 3 in Miami straight up. I thought they were going to get swept. Jaylen Brown's body language was not good at all. And then Boston, they just came back. And I think everyone would agree they're clearly the more talented roster on paper. They've been inconsistent all playoffs. We saw it in the first round against Atlanta. Obviously, they were able to beat them in 6. We saw it against Philly when they went down 3-1, and Jason Tatum was pretty bad for a majority of that series, and especially in Game 6 until the last 4 minutes. But you got to give credit to Miami Heat. They just keep defying all logic. They were 2 minutes away from not even making the playoffs. They almost lost to the Bulls in that play-in game. And it's just crazy. The ESPN Basketball Power Index gave them a 3% chance to beat Boston and make the finals. So Jimmy Butler's crazy. Obviously, the role players. I hate the term. I hate hearing undrafted. I think that's disrespectful. They're all professional basketball players.
Yeah.
ESPN just nonstop. Undrafted. No, they're playing for a reason. They are good. Caleb Martin. All their shooters have just been great.
Yeah, the whole undrafted narrative is a bit overplayed, I think. It is impressive that the Heat have been able to get these guys and turn them into who they are. But, we've heard it before. We don't need to hear it 20 times a game.
It's every game, too.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I guess projecting forward with the finals, Nuggets, Heat. Nuggets are obviously the favourites, but the Heat haven't been the favourites in any of their series so far. Oh, maybe they were favourites against the Knicks there. But anyway, I think the Nuggets are going to win. What are your thoughts on who's going to take out the title this year?
I've picked against the Heat in every series except for the Knicks because I'm a Brooklyn fan. As you said, I can't root for the Knicks. But I don't think they're getting past Boston. I think the Nuggets are a different animal compared to what they've played against. Boston's as talented as anyone on paper, like I said, but they've been inconsistent kind of all year, definitely in the playoffs. whereas the Nuggets have been a group that's kind of been together the last couple of years. One of the
Yeah.
rare teams in the NBA that actually lets their core build together and not blow it
Mm.
up after one playoff loss. Same coach. They just keep getting better and better. So, like I said, I've picked against the Heat pretty much every series. I'm doing it again. I'm going with the Nuggets, and I don't even think the game makes 7. I think it's 5 or 6, truthfully.
Yeah, I can see that as well. But much like you, I'm cautious to tip against the Heat, just given what they've been able to do. But I think both teams are actually a pretty good example of not having to um, buy a title, like buy
Right.
superstars. I mean, obviously Jimmy came in. He hasn't been there from the start, but he's been there for quite a few years now, and they haven't sort of gone out and gone shopping and bought these superstars to put around him. They've just confident in their coach and confident in their schemes and what they're doing on the court, much like the Nuggets. So I think I like the matchup because of the fact that it isn't a super team. It's not sort of one of these teams that goes out and spends all their money on 2 or 3 players like we saw with the Suns. Didn't work.
With
The
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn hasn't worked. What are I suppose, transitioning a bit there into Brooklyn, and again, we are going to get off basketball, but what are your thoughts, I suppose, looking ahead to next season? Like Ben Simmons, McCall Bridges, Cam Johnson, like they've got all these interesting pieces, but do they have a direction yet in your eyes? Like, are they just going to sit with what they've got now and build around that, or are they going to go out and try and get someone?
I mean, the direction is going to be decided by the front office this summer. With do they want to continue to build around the core and wait? See, they're in like a tricky situation because they have a lot of draft picks,
Mm,
but they're not their draft picks. So like they can't just full out tank because obviously the Rockets have their picks and the Rockets have the swaps. There's been a lot of smoke about maybe they're going to go after Damian Lillard this offseason.
hmm
Um, I don't think they're going to trade Mikal Bridges. I know there's been rumors of the Trailblazers shopping that number 3 pick. Like I said, I don't think it makes sense for the Nets because they don't have their own picks. So ultimately, the direction of the team is going to be decided this summer.
And being Australian, Ben Simmons is sort of in the news a little bit over here for a few different things. But from a Nets fan perspective, what are your thoughts on him moving forward? Is he someone you'd like to see stick as part of the roster, or is it time to just give up and move on?
It's tricky. It's tough. It's like this is probably the lowest his value will ever be. So if you're
Yeah.
moving on, you're moving multiple first round picks to move on. And a team that already doesn't control their first round picks, does that make sense? Are you going to salary dump him? Can try to convince Portland to take him back, kind of as a buy low for them? I mean, honestly, like I'm speaking from Nets fan in general. They're very sick of Ben Simmons already, and
Yep.
I mean, I fall in that same class. Obviously, he's been really frustrating, but as long as he's on the Nets, I'm gonna hope that he gets better because I mean, I think you could argue he is the worst contract in basketball right now
Yep.
after Russell Westbrook got out of his. It's like, I don't know. It's a tough situation, but
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think we saw, I don't know, we saw some glimpses last season, very, very small ones. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure. And I mean, even here in Australia, the talk here is because we're picking our national side now for upcoming events, and he hasn't
right,
been named. But the coach has sort of come out and said, "Hey, that's because of his injuries, not because of the talent. So we'd still like him
right.
to be part of our program." So yeah, I don't know what to think really. I
Yeah,
hope
I
he
mean,
can turn it around.
just real quick, he did have like a major back surgery. So it's not like
Mm,
he's just not playing. Like he did have a major back surgery last offseason. And going back to the Nuggets, like Michael Porter Jr. went through the same surgery. He has talked about it publicly, saying like it takes 18 months before you feel
mm,
close to normal. And Michael Porter is obviously an elite catch and shoot player, whereas Ben
Yep.
Simmons is the furthest thing from a catch and shoot player. He's more built on strength, athleticism. So he might take even longer than the 18 months, but it's frustrating, man, because he's the Nets' most expensive player now, and we just had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden not too long ago.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually. It's a good comparison there, Michael Porter Jr., because he has the ability, because of what he does on the court, to ease himself back in without people going, hey, you're not playing well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, because he can hit his shots. Simmons, as you said, he is not that player, and he needs his back at 100% to be able to get to the basket, defend the way he defends. So, yeah, look, fingers crossed he can turn it around. So we'll move into what the show's actually meant to be about. And first question is, so as I said, you now host the Scoop on Hoops podcast, which is your new show. I think you're 5 episodes in, something like that.
Yep.
So I've been listening to that. So that's been really good so far. Formerly, you did the Sports Ethos Nets podcast. So you're obviously expanding a little bit, moving into more general NBA stuff. So first question is for you: is the whole basketball thing, the podcasting, the all of the research, everything, is that your job? Is that a job? Is it a hobby? And if not, what do you do sort of outside of the basketball space?
Yeah, so I mean, it's mainly a hobby right now. Do get some income coming in from it, but definitely not close to enough to live off of, unfortunately. I would like it to become like a full-time career path at some point, but got to keep grinding. Outside of that, I'm actually a district manager of some Dairy Queens, so I run like 5 or 6 Dairy Queens in my area. Super busy about it, but it works out nice because the summertime here is when work is super busy, and obviously
Yep.
there's no NBA games going on. And then when
Yep.
we slow down, like the fall, the winter is when the NBA picks up, and then my work slows down. So it works out nice. But yeah.
Okay. And so most people listening will know Dairy Queen. I have no idea what Dairy Queen is, but I'm assuming it's like is it an ice cream shop? Is that, or I don't
Yeah.
know. What
So
is it?
it's like
Yeah.
it's like a big franchise, kind of like a McDonald's. It's not quite to that
Okay.
level, but slightly below it. But yeah, so the stores that I do, we obviously every Dairy Queen sells ice cream. We also sell food. It's pretty
Okay.
big. So
Okay. There you go. Yeah, it's just something. I mean, a lot of the franchises that are over there or started over there have made their way over here. Dairy Queen is not one of them, unless they're just not in the city where I live. That is possible.
I don't know. I do know that Dairy Queen is global. I don't know. You're in Australia, right? You said?
I am. I'm just going to Google and see if Dairy Queen is in Australia, because it could be. So I live. All right, you go.
Yeah, so I went to school for business, so finance. So this whole basketball thing, podcast thing, was not part of my education at all. It's kind of just a hobby I picked up. I started just tweeting stuff, gaining followers. I was approached by Sports Ethos, Nets podcast. Done some like writing with the Brooklyn Game, wrote some articles, been in some newspapers. So it's kind of just something I've picked up. Obviously, I did writing and stuff at school, but it's just more of a hobby that I'm trying to like fine tune and grow, kind of grow my own personal brand.
Yep. Yeah, much like me. Yeah, this is not something that I do full time. Sadly, it would be good, but it's not. It doesn't. And look, I would say majority of people that I've spoken with don't do it full time. It is more of a hobby that's sort of potentially gone too far and taken over their lives a little bit, but not enough for them to earn a living. So apparently, we do have a Dairy Queen in Australia, but not many. It looks like there might be 2. So one in Melbourne, one in Melbourne, one in Sydney. So probably the two major cities that people would know about in Australia. So I'll be heading to Melbourne soon. So I'm going to go to Dairy Queen and see what it's all about.
So let me know how the Australian one is.
I will. So yeah, obviously you've touched on your work there in terms of outside of work, employment, what is it that you like to do? So for me, I really like movies. I just like sport. I spend a lot of time with my kids and my family. For you, is there a partner? Is there kids? What are your interests outside of sport?
Yeah, so no kids yet, not married, just turned 27 not too long ago. So not rushing in that front. But I mean, a majority of my life besides work is really taken up by sports, whether it's talking about it, tweeting about it, writing about it. I also play. I'm in like a men's basketball league.
Hmm.
Super competitive person. It's like I said, I'm kind of washed up now, 27. So I got into bowling. I bowl in like leagues and tournaments,
Okay.
just to pick up something competitive when I'm getting older. I like golfing. Um, Not super big into like movies or TV, truthfully, because
Hmm.
if if I'm watching TV, I'm watching a sport, whether it's
Yeah.
football, baseball, obviously basketball, hanging out with friends. But like I said, a lot of the times it's sports related. So like I play in a soccer league.
Okay. So still pretty active. 27's not washed up. God, I don't even remember
No, trust
27.
me, I don't feel 21, 22 anymore. I'll tell you that much. It takes me a day to recover now.
Oh yeah, it takes me a week to recover. Wait till you get to 40, whatever I am now. What's 23, 44. So uh yeah, it takes a while to recover when you get to my age.
I hope I'm
Um
still playing basketball then.
yeah, I've just started getting back into it. So I did my ACL about
Oh,
what are we in June? So 15 months ago. Um
okay.
So playing basketball, tore my ACL and my PCL, and had a few fractures in there. So I did a good job on it. Um, so I'm just starting to get back playing now, which is good. I've really missed it, so it's good to get out and
Yeah.
just be running around again.
It's one thing I haven't had as a major injury, knock on some wood for me. A couple of ankle sprains, but nothing crazy. So hopefully,
Yeah, it's I've had ACL and Achilles. So I tore my Achilles when I was about
damn.
uh I was still pretty young. I was still only about 20, I think, when I tore my Achilles. Um, and unfortunately, it wasn't picked up when I did it. It was a I did it in. It was a very odd one because I didn't normally, as you know, you see an Achilles, someone's running, and it just looks like they get shot, and they just grab
Right.
for the back of their leg. I did mine when I rolled my ankle, so I did it an ankle sprain and my Achilles at the same time. Um, and so I just thought, hey, it's a sprained ankle. I've had these before. Drove myself to the hospital. Um, they checked it out. They said, yeah, just strap it up. Take a month. When it's feeling better, come back and play. And I did that. And I went, this does not feel like a sprained ankle
Oh my
anymore.
goodness.
Um, but so it actually wasn't picked up for a couple of months. And then when eventually it was picked up, my body had started compensating. And so I've got a lot of bone spurs and calcified bone in my ankle because it was trying to compensate for the lack of strength in my ankle. So I've always had a dodgy ankle since then, which
That's
was pretty
insane.
rough. But
That it wasn't picked up, and you were just walking
yeah,
around on it like nothing happened.
yeah, I was back playing on it
That's
like 6
that's
weeks after
crazy.
I did it, and much like you and anyone who's played basketball, you know what a sprained ankle feels like, and you can sort of
Oh yeah.
gauge within yourself. Okay, I'm ready to go back now, and ready
Right.
to test this out. And so I thought I was, but it felt way different. Um, so so no TV, really, other than sport. So you said you like, well, basketball, obviously, football, baseball. In terms of fantasy sports, we know you're not a fantasy analyst per se, but you do play in fantasy sports. Do you play fantasy sports across all those major sports, and do you have a favorite?
Yeah. So I'm in fantasy basketball dynasty league. Fantasy. I'm in like 3 or 4 fantasy football dynasty leagues. I'm in a baseball one. Honestly, my favorite is baseball, just because baseball is like a counting stats sport.
Hmm.
Typically, the best team wins in baseball. Is what I'll say. I think most exciting is football. because I play with a lot of my buddies from high school. So it's more of like the competition, the trash talking during
Yeah.
the head-to-head matchups that are more enjoyable for me with football. And then
Yeah.
honestly, like this was my first year playing fantasy basketball, and
Okay.
I actually had a good team. I think I came in third or fourth out of like 30. And it was just the injuries, man. The injuries killed me. Players resting. It was brutal. And it was like weekly lineup blocks. I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed it because it was a little, gave me something to do in between football and baseball, but it's a big problem. And it's a big problem in the NBA too, not just my
Mm.
personal fantasy experience.
It is, yeah, the whole injury thing. And I mean, I don't play fantasy football or baseball because in Australia, neither of those sports are very big. They
Right.
exist, and we know of them. Fantasy football is getting a lot bigger, but
Yep.
so fantasy football is obviously the games are on weekends or primarily sort of over a weekend. NBA
Right.
is every day. Baseball's
Yep.
every day as well. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct. Yep. Every day.
But I mean, what I know about baseball, I would assume that the whole injury thing, isn't as prominent is in baseball because it's not a contact sport. It's
Right.
you hurt your shoulder or going for a ball, whatever. But is that true? Like, because I know baseball's more games over the course of a season, but are the injuries as big a thing in fantasy baseball?
Well, there's 162 games as opposed to the NBA season, so it's almost double. But no, there's definitely not as many injuries. There's also more players in baseball, so like
Mm.
each baseball team just has more players that play actively. So if you have injuries, like you're not putting in some 11th man off the bench for like the Minnesota
Yeah,
Timberwolves that's going to play like 7 minutes a game. So that's the difference. Like they have 9 guys getting at bats every game, and there's 30 teams. So it's like there's plenty of players to pick from.
yeah,
Whereas basketball is almost like half of that because there's what, if you're lucky, 9, 10 man rotations in the regular season.
yeah, yeah. If you're lucky, depending on the team.
Right.
So I guess for me, like the question, it's raised a bit, I suppose, in terms of should the NBA cut the season back? So should it be 75 games or 70 games? What are your thoughts on that? Do you have an opinion on whether they should reduce the season and if they will reduce the season?
So I mean, for like the quality of the game to get players to stop resting, I think they should. Either that or just extend it, make it an extra month longer, so that way you're not playing so many back to backs.
Hmm.
Will they do it? Probably not, because in anything, like we said before, we're not full time podcast hosts because it doesn't pay us enough. So money talks in every aspect of life, and that's what's going
Yeah.
to talk with the NBA. They're getting all these huge TV deals because the more games you play, the more games are on TV, the more money you make. So it's really like a tug of war. I know they tried with like, oh, you can't win the MVP or whatever, be all NBA team
Hmm.
if you don't play a certain amount of games. And like that's a step in the right direction, but I don't know if that's really gonna persuade players to be like, oh, I'm just not gonna play tonight because the playoffs are more important to me, or winning a championship is more important than me winning uh MVP or most improved player or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. I mean, much like you, I think the money is going to be ultimately the deciding factor, and if they're going to lose too much money, they just won't do it. And
Right.
they've I think that we've got the in-season tournament starting next season, which is going to be that adds another layer to. I mean, a player's going to rest for this tournament because I mean, I think every player gets 100 grand or something. I can't remember exactly what the incentives
I
are,
don't
but
understand the point of the in-season tournament personally. I think it's stupid. Like, why you're adding games?
yeah,
It's just dumb.
yeah, I don't fully get why they're doing it, and whether this is going to be well. If these games, I'm not sure if they count towards the regular season, but if they don't, then why would players play? So that might be a period where they do take some rest. Um, Speaking of rest, I suppose, and breaks, All Star. Are you a fan of the All Star game? It's I don't know. It's gone a bit off the rails, so I'm a bit torn about it. Do you have an opinion on whether it should continue or what it could look like? Maybe some changes they could make.
So the last All-Star game was atrocious. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like in the past you used to be like, oh, like cool alley-oop dunks or like whatever.
Yeah.
This past one was just literally like watching a layup line. Like it was so boring. The best part was when the two Boston players, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, were going at each other one-on-one.
Yeah.
And that was for like 45 seconds out of the game.
Yeah.
When they first added the target score, like that first All-Star game was insane. Like it was players were like sweating, like yelling at the refs. Like it was super intense. And then this past All-Star game, a player tried to make one defensive play, LeBron, and he punched the rim and like hurt his finger and missed regular season games.
Yeah.
I do think, kind of going back to like the baseball route, if they make it East versus West again, and whoever wins the All-Star game hosts the finals, like has home court advantage, maybe that makes it more competitive. Depending on how much players value home court advantage in the finals. That's what they do in baseball. So like if the AL wins, then whoever is the AL team in the World Series, they get the home field advantage. So like that's some kind of incentive. I don't think money matters at all for these players. If you're an all-star in the NBA, you're already making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. You don't care about another 300,000 or whatever they could throw at you. So, I mean, once again, it's money. They make money off this all-star game. The players need a little mid-season break, so they're not going to get rid of it. But hopefully they try something to make it so the players care a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think getting rid of it is the solution, and obviously getting named to an all-star team is a big honor for a player.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're ever going to get rid of it. But yeah, as you said, I think they need to change it up. I didn't mind the dunk comp this year. It was better than it had been the last few years. I always enjoy the 3-point shootout because I think it's sort of tried and tested. It works. The format works.
Right.
I'm not sure about all the bonus balls, and they've got the really long one now. Like it's worth 4 points or whatever it is. I don't know about that, but anyway, I guess we'll see. So before I let you go, so this is the little bit of the show that has a bit of a fantasy element to it. The first, part of the question's been answered because it's about Victor Wembanyama next season. The first part of the question was, where would you like to see him go? Well, that we've pretty much got an answer to that. We know
Brooklyn Nets. I want him to go to the Nets somehow. I picked 21.
Yeah, God, good luck there. He'll go to the Spurs. I don't think there's any chance they trade that pick. Why would they? That'd be stupid too. So he'll be going to San Antonio. What are your thoughts on that as a landing spot when compared to what the other, I guess, the primary options were going to be Detroit, Houston, Charlotte, maybe, and Spurs? Is Spurs sort of a good landing spot for you in terms of his development?
Yeah, I mean, two better to end up with than Greg Popovich, right? Like, who knows how long Pop has left, but in terms of coaching, like, you have the other players that came from overseas that played for Pop. I mean, Victor looked very happy when he found out, like, where he was going. I mean, I know there was a little fist pump when he found out where the Rockets were picking. So, like, he seemed happy. I mean, it's like I said, it's Greg Popovich. So, like, what could go wrong?
That's right. And I think, I mean, it's obviously hasn't been there for a while, but there's that connection with Tony Parker as well. Nick Batum is obviously a big sort of French player here as well. So I think there's and Ginobili, who, I mean, he's not French, but that European flavour that the Spurs have been able to develop, these European kind of players. So, yeah, look, initially I actually wanted him to go to Charlotte just because I thought both he and LaMelo, that'd be a really, really cool thing to watch. But I don't mind him on the Spurs now. And the fantasy element of this is, if we look ahead to next season, if you're in a fantasy league, just not a dynasty, because dynasty he's going top 3 in most spaces that we're doing some mock drafts at the moment. But in a redraft league, where I mean, where are you hoping that you might be able to get him? And would you have any opinion on what his ADP might be? So where he will be going based on or everything?
I mean, so like I don't do redraft fantasy basketball, so I'm just like throwing this out
Okay.
there. But he seems like a very high upside pick where he could end up being like the number one player. So like I'm assuming he's projected in the top 10 still.
For redraft leagues?
Yeah. Or is that too aggressive?
It's probably on the high end of where he's
Okay.
probably going to go. So I think most of the analysts that I've spoken with would love to get him in the third round of a redraft league, but that's not going to happen.
I was gonna say, I mean, like I said, I'm no expert on this, but if you're third round, like I'll take him.
Yeah, and there's pretty much no way he falls that far. I think he's going to go probably around pick 15, so like back end of a first round in a redraft league is where he will go. But you're going to get people that are going to go, hey, I've got pick 5, I'm taking Wembanyama.
I mean, like I said, I'm no expert, but hell, if I could get him at like 10, 11, 12, like even 8, 9, like the stud, like Luka, the Joker, like even Shay's going to be up there, I would imagine, in redraft. He had a crazy season. It's like those guys because one, they have the same upside as Wembanyama, but they're proven. Like what they're going to do.
Yeah.
The Spurs are still rebuilding. Are they going to pull the Thunder and kind of shut them down early? Are they going to be cautious with his minutes? So there's all those factors, but the upside's crazy. Like he could average 30, 10, and 5 blocks.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Obviously, there's plenty of YouTube stuff you can go and watch on him, and NBA's been covering all of his games this season. So if you're not sure about what he can do, go and watch this. There's highlights everywhere. And that, I don't know if you saw that, the putback that he did off his own 3-pointer where he
I saw that.
Like that's, people say the whole video game narrative gets thrown out there about how he's playing like a video game. That is a video game move. Like that's just not something you see, have ever seen anyone do, and it was ridiculous.
He is who everyone was hoping Kristaps Porzingis would be.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but like 4 inches taller, 5 inches taller.
But even more insane.
Yeah, there was a video. I think I saw it on Twitter like this week of him. Rudy Gobert was awarding him something. It was some trophy, or I don't know what it was. He towers over Gobert now. It's not even close.
I'm telling you, it's insane.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's still growing, but God help us if he is. So that'll do it for the show today. So I guess just for anyone listening, let them know what you've got or where they can find you, but also what you've got planned for the next few months in the lead up to the NBA season.
Yeah. So I'm mainly on Twitter, so you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @RealCodyMallory. In addition to that, I mean, like you said, I just launched my own podcast right around 2 weeks ago today, actually. We're recording episode 5 after I finish up here. We're just going to be talking about the NBA. I mean, the off season in the NBA is crazy. Like, there's no off season. There's rumors every day. Like, we just recorded yesterday, and I have a queue of like 15 bookmarks in my Twitter that is like already all these crazy rumors, like D'Angelo Russell, obviously Bob Myers stepping down. So the NBA there's news every day. We're going to try to get a couple episodes out every week during the off season and then during the regular season. Besides that, I'm not really writing anywhere right now. So free agent, like I said, Twitter @RealCodyMallory is where you can mainly find me, and then my podcast.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, like I said, go and listen to the show. It's good. It covers a bit of everything, which is, and it's very, I think as you said, even in the off season, you need to have constant shows because the news breaks every couple of days, and we've got the draft is 3 weeks away or something, and then summer league, free agency, all of that coming up, and then it'll be September, and then we'll be getting ready for the season. So, go and follow Cody on Twitter. Check out the podcast. That will do it for today's show. Remember, you can check out all of our content over at FBI Basketball. Matt Lawson's got the Dynasty show rolling now. Very, very interesting stuff. He's breaking down an industry mock that we're doing. We're actually doing two. We're obviously all pretty desperate for content and for something to do. So go and check out all of his stuff over at our website. Follow the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Love it if you could give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, catch up.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.